How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Frozen from 2010. This is written and directed by Adam Green, who had previously done the film Hatchet. If you haven't seen Hatchet yet, it's a really fun 80s throwback slasher movie set in Louisiana with Kane Hodder. Pretty cool. But anyway, Frozen. This movie stars Emma Bell, Kevin Zegers, and Shawn Ashmore, and plus also features a cameo from Kane Hodder, who did the stunt coordination on this film. Always great to see Kane Hodder, famous for playing Jason, and also, like I mentioned earlier, he was in Hatchet. Anyway, I guess I should get the obligatory thing out of the way that everybody says with this movie. We're talking about the 2010 version of Frozen, not the Disney one. Yeah, it's kind of funny. A smaller horror movie used this title a couple years before Disney did, but there's not necessarily strong copyrights on titles. There are certain laws where if you're, trying to spoof a movie too much when you do a mockbuster, they can go after you, but you can't necessarily say, I'm going to be the only movie called Frozen forever, so yeah, Disney could do that. But yeah, I don't know, it always felt to me like a big corporation that just doesn't care about a smaller movie and really kind of wrecked this movie's SEO, It's hard to search for this movie without typing in Frozen 2010 or Frozen Adam Green, so that kind of sucks for this one. But it did lead to some funny reviews, I'm sure a lot of them are just people joking around, but it is always fun to look up reviews for this movie and see people going, my kids got terrified, how could anyone recommend this movie to them? Yeah, probably a joke, but a funny joke. But anyway, this movie is, I guess what you'd call a captivity thriller or a confinement thriller. Not 100% sure on the terminology, but one of those where the characters are stuck in one place for a long time and it becomes a survival situation. How do they get out of there? How do they survive? I believe other movies that use this before are like Open Water or 127 Hours, and those kind of movies, it's a little hard. It's budget friendly, so low budget movies really do like to do this because, you don't need a bunch of sets, you don't need a bunch of actors, but you need a really good writer because you have to make sure you're changing things up and you're being interesting all while staying in one place, and that's really hard, but I think this movie is one of the better examples of that. Adam Green, obviously Hatchet had humor as well. He can be pretty funny, and the humor really does help this movie, keeps a sense of levity, but also when you're telling jokes or funny stories, really helps fill up the runtime other than just, I'm scared, So the humor really does help, but also it does a good enough job at changing up the situation. Maybe someone is in a big machine relatively nearby, or maybe someone has an idea at how they could get out, or notices something, or something horrifying happens. It shakes it up just enough to keep it interesting without feeling like they're just throwing everything at the screen, And I have to say, this is one of the better examples of a confinement thriller. Now, I will say, if you're not a fan of this type of genre, if you're like, I want more to happen, or, if you're big at yelling at characters in the movie, which I don't think this one's too bad at, but I mean, it's just something the genre lends itself to. Not everybody's going to be into confinement thrillers, but I have to say this is one of the better examples of it. And in general, I think this movie's pretty well made. Especially, the three things that this movie, as far as terror, has going for it: you're really high up, you're very isolated, and it's very cold. I'm doing a whole series on snow movies right now, and I have to say this is one where you feel the cold more than most movies, and it really gets to a lot of people. Some people find this movie horrifying, and why I like this movie, I'm not one of those absolute diehard fans for it, but I think it's pretty good, but I think I like it more for Adam Green's humor, and, you know, and just, how much they can do on a low budget. You know, I like it more for that. I wasn't absolutely terrified of it, but I know that there are people that things like freezing to death gets them, and if isolation, height, and freezing, if any of those get to you, yeah, this might be one that really gets to you. So yeah, I like it, but I know some people absolutely love this movie, and you know, that's good. So anyway, I guess let's talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to analyze it a little bit. Let's go ahead and start at the beginning. We open up with 3 college kids, 2 guys and a girl, and we get the main guy, and the other guy is his best friend since childhood, and the girl is his girlfriend. So between these 2 other characters, it kind of begs the question, who is the third wheel here, you know? Because these ski trips were like a best friend thing that they always do, but at the same time, it kind of feels like a date between the guy and his girlfriend, so the relationship is a little unbalanced, which creates an interesting sense of drama. But anyway, they go to the lift operator and they bribe him to let them on rather than having a pass, which they bribe him with $100, which makes me wonder how much those passes are. I guess maybe the pass is like your ticket to go on the mountain or something. I never skied. I don't know. I realized doing this series of snow movies just how many of them are about skiing and snowboarding, and I know nothing about that. I'm from Texas. If we get just a little bit of snow, we all freak out. Gee, remembering those power outages from a couple winters back, yee. But anyway, they bribe the guy and they go down the mountain and have a good day of skiing and snowboarding. However, they've done primarily easier trails, and the guys want to do one big hard one before the night's over. And they go up to the guy and he goes, whoa, whoa, we're closing. No more trips up the mountain. It's getting late and the weather's getting nasty. I can't let you guys go up here. So they talk him into it. They say, just one more ride. We'll be really quick. Just let us go one more time. And of course he does, but shortly after he sends them up, something comes up at work and he has to leave. He leaves a different guy there, and he tells his replacement, 3 more people are coming down the mountain. Keep an eye out for them. But of course, he doesn't know what they look like, and when 3 other people come down the mountain, he shuts everything down. And now, the ski lift has stopped with the 3 of them hanging up in the air, and it's getting cold. On top of all that, it's Sunday, the last day of the weekend. Not only are they going to be stuck up there overnight, but if they don't figure a way out, they're going to be stuck from Sunday all the way to when they open again on Friday. Yeah, that is not a good situation. And yeah, let's talk about the pros. I mentioned them earlier, but the 3 big ones, you're high up, not super high, but pretty high. It is really isolated. You can scream and no one will hear you, especially over the whistling wind. And of course, very, very cold. You know, you'll see them and the ice starts to get on their face, and like there's a famous scene where she accidentally leaves her hand on the pole too long and her skin starts to stick to it. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff. Part of me wishes that there was even more gore, and don't get me wrong, it's not a very gore-heavy movie. There are some really brutal scenes, especially towards the end, which were pretty nice with pretty good special effects. Part of me kind of wishes they went heavier on the makeup and you really saw them freeze and start to look messed up. And there is a little bit of that. Maybe it's just me wanting something unrealistic. But what we do have is cool. It's not too heavy, but part of me wonders. But that's beside the point. But anyway, and another thing I hinted at earlier, the writing, switching things up, making sure that you're staying entertaining. You know, a scene early on where there's like a big, I guess it's some sort of snow machine, and it's just out of earshot. It's making all these grinding sounds, and they can't get a hold of it. And then there's like, what do? Do you just jump down? It's way too high up. Will you survive that? Can you maybe climb to one of the poles and get down the poles? Well, the wire is pretty sharp. It's a big industrial cable. Is it gonna chew your hands up? That's a pretty scary idea. And then, of course, in the snow, you know, you start to see the wolves. Even if you do get down, you're surrounded by wild wolves. And, you know, there's so many shaking things up just enough, you know, where it keeps it entertaining, it keeps it changing, and it really does, you know, in a situation that could get stale really easy, it really does shake it up. But also, humor, and I mentioned this a few times, but there's jokes like someone talks about wanting to get a dog, and he wants to name the dog Steve, and they're like, Steve is a people name. You can't name a dog Steve. And, you know, funny stories from the past. And, you know, the funny stories from the past can also lead to some, like, heartwarming moments, like when one of the guys is talking about when he met his best friend for the first time. Lots of humor, but also lots of heart in the story, and you really do care for the characters, you know, all the things they talk about make them feel real and well-rounded. There's one scene where the girl talks about her dog, and she's like, oh, my dog's gonna think I just forgot about her. Will she starve to death while I'm gone? Okay, that was pretty sad. So you do feel for the characters, and yeah, just really good writing. Feel for the characters, humor with a sense of levity, but also the humor has another effect in this movie, and I don't know how intentional that was, but so many times when you get confinement thrillers, you judge them really seriously, and that's just part of what happens with the subgenre. Why wouldn't this character do this? I would totally do this if I was in this situation. And when the movies are serious, and so many of them are so super serious, and when they're serious, it makes it a lot easier to judge them. You think your movie is so smart? How did you not think of this situation? But when it has a bit of humor and a bit of levity, it really does dissolve those feelings. And also, your characters are established to be kind of goofballs. You know, they're silly, college-age kids. When they don't think of something, they're not expert survivalists or experienced nature people. They're just dumb college kids, so it's a lot more plausible that they wouldn't think of something, you know, and that really does help the situation out. So yeah, lots of stuff going for this movie. The writing, really well done. The atmosphere, really well done, and I could totally see this getting a lot of people. Like I said, I'm not the absolute biggest fan of this movie, but I still really did like it. And I have to say, unless confinement thrillers aren't really your thing, if you just don't like the movies where they're stuck in one place, if you find yourself yelling at characters in horror movies too often, which I totally know lots of people do, again, I think this movie is a lot better at this than some other movies, but it's just trappings of the genre, and some people I can totally see absolutely not standing this movie. But if you don't mind confinement thrillers, and also if you like movies that have a bit of humor behind them, if you watched Hatchet, this isn't at all, as far as what happens in the movie, like Hatchet, but you can totally tell it was written by the same guy. So if you're an Adam Green fan, another movie to check out. I really do need to cover Hatchet sometime. It was pretty fun. But anyway, I guess that's all I have to say on this at the moment. To everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. And to everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You are really helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my snow movies playlist. Well, snow movies with the exception of Christmas movies, because if I put Christmas movies in there, they would just fill up the whole list. So, snow horror movies, think things like The Thing, The Shining, 30 Days of Night, Curtains, a bunch of other cool stuff. So if you guys want to see me talk about more snow movies, you can find them in this playlist here. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.